Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. You are watching The Skull Takers. My name is Dara, and joining me today is Josie, who was very recently at the LGT with a world leader list. One of the world leader lists of all time. I would say possibly one of the greatest world leader lists of all time. And Josie had an amazing run with what is probably one of the coolest lists I've seen in maybe this entire past year. Josie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Most of the time, we have someone on the Skull Takers, and it's a really interesting conversation. But generally, it's a little bit formulaic after a while. It's like, oh, you brought how many 8 bands? You did not do that.
Not not a single 8 down model passed my list.
Yep, no, none at all. And a lot of one model came into your list, so I don't want to spoil any surprises. I'm going to flip it over to you, Josie. You went to the LGT. You did amazing there. I don't want to spoil the results, but the reason that we've got you on here is because your list is, I feel like something that most world leader players have talked about. Most world leader players have been like, "Oh, I would like to run that list," but very few people. In fact, this is the first time I've seen it. Very few people have been brave enough to try it. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the crazy list that you brought to the LGT?
Yeah, so this list is fairly simple in many ways. It's not got very many data sheets. It's 110 Jakhals with, of course, everyone's favorite Demon Prince to give them that invuln save and World Eaters to give them that feel no pain army wide. So it's 5 sets of 10, 5 sets of 20 rather, and one set of 10. 11 icons across the list is fantastic for just re-rolling every blood dice every single time. Always get what you want on the board, pretty much. So those guys with the Doom Prince, and then it's just a few guys to sort of tie it all together. There's obviously Angron goes in every World East list, even the out there ones. But he was always going to go in this one anyway, because part of the sort of the play of the Jakhals is the icon spam, is the ability to get Angron back incredibly reliably compared to what we normally get for him. Invocatus obviously goes in this list because he has scout, and what's more fun than him scouting is 40 jackals scouting 6 inches up the board as well. People respect that
Yeah, that's
far
a
more aggression.
that's a whole new meaning to the word pressure, right?
People are scared of it. I very rarely actually use it aggressively, but it's certainly something that people have
Yeah,
to respect.
yeah,
A few exalted 8 pound, just that one unit of three, to be honest. Sometimes they're a troubleshooter, sometimes they go kill a tank. Sometimes they just run into something and project that aura of maybe not falling back. Because if I'm against something shooty and they don't get to shoot at 110 jackals, then I'm in a good spot.
yeah.
Um, one forge fiend because on the UK, on the sort of the UK boards especially, I think you need a little bit of shooting to keep people honest. The
Hmm.
boards are a lot better than they were, a lot better than they were, but there are still some very good lines of shooting, and a forge fiend locks one of those down really well, and it stops people from sort of just really pre-measuring range. Like against 8 pound lists, against Angron's lists, I'm less sure it's needed because they all move very, very fast. Jackals, they generally move in 6 to 12 inches. It's the kind of threat range that people can actually play around fairly well. And then also 3 units of two spawn, because why not lean into the durability skew?
Yeah,
Those
why not,
guys
right?
are obnoxious with a 4 up feel no pain.
They're so good.
Nobody enjoys them.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
I
be so
certainly
sad
enjoy
when they
them,
go to
but
OC
yeah.
zero.
No, it's wild. Like it's crazy. I actually so like the whole list is amazing and I love it, but it's the Forge Fiend is the one that I wanted to pick your brain on, and I think you've explained it quite well there. It's a real talking point for world leader players in the competitive scene. Is like, do I bring some guns or don't I? But I think you highlighted pretty well on the UKTC boards. They certainly have improved. But having that little unit to just keep people honest, I guess it really helps, right?
It does. It was a massive help for me in most of my games, and I think a lot of World Eaters players can ignore it because with the list they have a lot of exalted, they have a lot of high AP, reasonable damage. They can chunk through things like Terminators very well. One of the big things that my list cannot do very well is kill Terminators if they put Armor of Contempt on. I have one Angron that can kill Terminators and nothing else apart from the Forge Fiend. So it actually does a good damage roll in my list that
Mm,
a
yeah.
lot of World Eaters lists don't need the damage roll of a Forge Fiend, but I really did.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, I've got to ask it. what made you do it? Like, why?
So initially, this wasn't supposed to be a serious list. It wasn't supposed to be a good list. I got asked by some of my friends over at 6++. They're one of the teams in the UK. They've got a good Discord server. It's a thriving little scene, and they run events on their server. And their events generally are geared towards newer players who want to get people into the scene. So they have great players on their squad as well. But generally speaking, they're good players play silly lists, meme lists. Like I think in my pod games there was somebody who was running Oops All Dark Angels bikes, that sort of thing. It's not necessarily the best list, but fun lists that get people into TTS and into playing 40k competitively. It's great fun. So I was asked to join that, and I thought, okay, what silly list can I come up with? What less serious list can I manage? And this one came to mind because previously, at the sort of earlier in the index, a lot of people were genuinely very tempted by Jakhals ban because the Demon Prince gave a 4-pin run, and that was hilarious. It was very, very good. And then it got nerfed in the sort of balance slate. Was it last Christmas time? A while back now.
It feels like almost a year ago at this point.
I
Yeah,
know, right?
yeah. So it's such an unnecessary nerf at the time as
I
well.
know
It's just like,
people were only just starting to build up to it, and before they
yeah,
really got a chance, it went away. And everybody who was looking at the list thought, "Oh, well, it's got worse. It was never, an incredible list to begin with. It's just got nerfed. Let's stop worrying about it." And Jackal spam just sort of got swept under the rug and forgotten about. So I felt the same, in all honesty. So I came up with this list, and I was like, okay, this is just funny. It's a lot of angry bodies. They're all slightly, they're all kind of tough. 5-up Invuln, 5-up Feel No Pain is still nothing to be, to sniff at. But it wasn't meant to be very good. And then it was, and I realized very
yeah,
early on that it's very good actually, not because it did get worse. It is functionally defensively, it's a worse list than it was at the start of the index. It just is. But the game has changed a little bit. And the way it's changed most of all, I think, is the mission pack that we have right now. So Leviathan was fine, but it rewarded you very strongly for being able to push into your opponent's homeland. It rewarded you for being extremely fast, which is what World DT did quite well, absolutely. And for being able to table your opponent, if you could do that. Obviously, that always is supported. Pariah, I don't think does that anywhere near as much. I think Pariah Nexus missions reward you extremely well for having an army that can sit in the midboard and
yeah,
can just say, these midboard objectives, these are mine. I don't need to take your home objective because there's no such thing as capturing an outpost anymore. If I draw sabotage, I can just get 3 points for doing the midboard. If I happen to have something in your home deployment zone, I get 3 extra points. But it's not worth the so many points for capturing an outpost that you always had to be thinking about in
yeah,
Leviathan.
right.
And the general mix of missions, the way there are more actions now, most of the actions also just happen in the midboard. There's not really much of a reason to push out far past the middle of the board. And Jackal Skew is fantastic for sitting behind some safe ruins and just poking out a few units at a time. I can trade this, I can trade that. And if it's an army that I can brawl into, then I can brawl into it because they're actually very good at brawling stuff out because the game in general doesn't have very many things that can kill a unit of Jackals, certainly not in one go. I was practicing this list and people say, well, what about Deathwing Terminators? And it's irrelevant because Deathwing Terminators, they have like 24 attacks across an entire unit.
Yeah,
If
it's not
they hit
going to
on
do
twos, they
anything.
wound on twos. Okay, great. I've lost 10 guys.
Hmm.
Still got 10 OC on an objective. I've maybe killed one Terminator going in, so you've got 4. My objective.
Yeah.
It'll take you another turn to actually kill me, and by the time you actually kill me, great, here come another 20 Jackals. It's
We do it again.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was a list that as I got more practice games in, I realized how actually really flexible the list is. You can do that very tradey game. That's part of why I've got exactly 5 units of Jackals in all honesty, because it opened with and 20 out each turn. That's it. That's the game plan here. I'm going to hold my safe corner, and we're just going to send out 20 Jackals into the middle every turn. That's one game plan that absolutely works. It also can, with Angron's help, I say especially entirely with Angron's help, it can really punch up if you get an opponent who wants to push into you or has a game plan that means they want to push into you, because a lot of lists, they are pressure lists themselves. And if they're close enough that you say, okay, I don't need advance and charge this turn, I can just turn on lethal hits. I can turn on sustain hits army wide, and I can just send in as many Jakhals as I need with full hit rerolls from Angron. And all of a sudden, those
Oh,
guys
that's
will bring down
disgusting.
anything.
That's awful. I
And
mean,
if
I
I
love it
need
and hate it in equal measure, you know?
and if I need advance and charge, I just make sure I kill something with Angron first, and then I'll have advance and charge and lethal hits plugged in from the start, and I'll just turn on sustained after I get that because
Yeah.
it's a double 3-up. It's almost guaranteed,
Yeah. Well,
and
it is
it's
when you have, what, 11 icons, did you say? Is
yeah, just
anything not
11.
guaranteed with that?
It's not far off. I think we ran the numbers, and it's a 48% chance of getting Angron back every single time we roll it. And I'm
That's
rolling it
ridiculous.
at least twice a battle round. So I've
Yeah.
I've got essentially two coin flips a turn to try and get Angron back. If I win one of them, he's here again, and it's wonderful.
That's so rude. It's an aspect of the list that until you were talking about it in the Discord that I was just like, oh yeah, that's like totally a thing. Like that is amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Um
And it
yeah.
means that one of the big things about the list is there's never a good target. I don't have a big thing. The only big thing that I have is Angron. And if you commit everything into Angron, chances are it's not relevant because he's coming straight back.
Yeah.
And almost everything else that you go into, you are trading down into. Like if you can shoot the Forge Fiend from range, fine. But generally speaking, to find those lines, I've made it so that you're putting yourself in charge range. So again, there's not many tank killers that can reliably one shot a Forge Fiend. And if it doesn't die, well, Angron's charging straight into your tank next turn, and the Forge Fiend's limping on. I don't care if it's a bit wounded.
Yeah.
But nothing kills 130 points of Jakhals that costs less than 130 points.
No, definitely
Nothing in
not.
the game.
Yeah.
Nothing kills spawn anything close to reliably. Um, I ran spawn. I think I've my favorite one so far was I played a TTS tournament game. It was on stream, I think, in the Tactical Tortoise server, against somebody's guard list, and shoot buff. I don't remember there's an order for buffing shooting on guard tanks. Take aim, take aim buff on a Rogel Dawn and a Leman Russ with the cool Demolisher cannon that's like D6 damage. I get no saves against the vast majority of their weapons. They put almost everything into a unit of two spawn. Both of those tanks, they killed one spawn because
It's so rude.
4-up feel no pain is it's just obnoxious. It just
Yeah.
blanks things sometimes.
You just don't know what's going to happen with those guys. I mean, they could fold immediately. Sometimes they do, but then a lot of the time they're just going to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to hang around forever."
Yeah.
Um,
What was that? What was you put 10 damage into me? Okay, here's 7 4-ups. Oops.
game's easy,
Didn't kill a spawn. Unfortunate, I guess.
and then they just heal up, right?
Yeah,
Which is even
yeah,
ruder. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's incredible. I mean, I really like the whole thing of like, yeah, you can shoot Angron in this list. Yeah, you might kill Angron, but on a coin flip, he's just back, and you've just wasted a turn putting damage into him. And oh, by the way, here's more Jakhals the whole time. It's just like it's ridiculously obnoxious in the most world eater way possible. I like it's just so
Yeah.
good. But would you say, I suppose, like going into the LGT, you know, there's obviously a lot of high profile players, but there's going to be a lot of faction diversity as well. Did you think there was like a specific army out there that might be a very difficult counter to your list? Or were you kind of just like, I've got a series of plans that can be adapted into basically any faction?
Yeah, so going in, I was confident I could I think I could either win pretty comfortably or give a good game against almost anything. Um, there were sort of two factions that I was very wary of. One was Chaos Knights, partially because I've not played against them with this list. War Dogs have a lot of OC, and there are Havoc launchers everywhere. And one
Yeah.
thing I do not like is a lot of blast weapons for fairly obvious reasons. Like Jakhals die to low AP guns just as easily as they die to Lars cannons, and there's a lot more shots on a Havoc launcher than there is on a Lars cannon. I still think I could do okay into Chaos Knights. I just didn't have any of the data, any of the testing that I wanted to do into it. The one that I was pretty sure I was never going to win, and I still am pretty sure I don't beat a competent player, is Grey Knights. Grey
Mm,
Knights Terminators especially. If I'm up against somebody who's running 20 or 30 Terminators with Armor of Contempt, and they're all OC3, I think, Grey Knights Terminators, they're solid OC anyway. I can't bully them. I can't really brawl them. That's part of why I 100% wanted the Forge Fiend in the list, because that at least gives me something that could pop off and kill just a bunch of Terminators randomly.
Yeah,
They were the
makes
Terminators that
sense.
I was actually concerned about. I think they're the only ones really that I am. Like Marine Terminators are kind of whatever. I
Yeah,
can usually bully them, but Grey Knights ones with armor contempt and even just the basic Marines. If I can't trade into basic Marines if they're guaranteed to a 2-up save every time I fight them.
yeah,
It
that
becomes
makes sense.
a very difficult. And they've got Storm Bolters. They're it's a Storm Bolter and 2-up armor of contempt army,
Yeah,
and that feels like it was a very definite concern.
I can see that.
I was lucky enough to dodge them at LGT. But
Yeah.
yeah, they were the ones that I was 100% sure I wasn't going to get out of if the player knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I actually, when I was prepping for, I think it was Manchester this year, when I was running 40 Jakhals, I did find out that Chaos Knights can pick those bricks up very, very quickly.
Yeah,
Weirdly, the thing that I didn't expect is it's like the despoiler with the double battle cannon, who's like rapid fire 6 or something like that. That guy picked up, I think, 18 out of 20 Jakhals in one go, and I was just like, oh, okay, this is the unit that can do it. And as you
oh,
say, rightfully so, with like maybe, 8 to 12 war dogs on the table, those havoc launchers are just gonna be such a pain in the ass every single turn. So yeah, it's
yeah, and it's not the end of the world because with Jackals, you care about four of them in a unit of 20. There are four guys that I care about. 16 of them die so that four of them can run in and do damage.
yeah.
But I will still lose 16 of them quite quickly.
Yeah, they will disappear. But sometimes the 5 ups are just like, you know what, we're showing up today, and it's
Absolutely.
rude. It's really rude.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the games. We've gone through the madness of the list. So without giving away your final result, we'll keep people watching in tentative expectation. But how was game one? What were you playing into, and how are you feeling about it?
Game one, I was definitely respectfully concerned about it. It was AdMech, and AdMech, you think, oh, AdMech's fine, and then it's Guitari Hunter AdMech, which have a lot of shots, and those shots are generally very bad. Anybody who's played against AdMech knows they're just going to throw 100 different AP 0 damage one shots at you. I don't want to take 100 AP 0 damage one shots.
It's
That's
like the
not good
army
for
was
my
built to kill
list.
you almost.
Yeah, it's great anti-horde. It went well though in the end. What it lacked was a way to reliably pick up the big guys. So that he had 3 units of belt of the Iron Striders with last cannon. So he had 6 of those guys. That was realistically all I had to be worried about with Angron. If I could pick them up, he was just going to run wild across the game. And I was extremely lucky in this game to go second, which is not something any World Eaters player would normally think. It's not something I want in my list normally. I don't want to go second because you always have a better game as World Eaters going first. But what I wanted to do in this game was react. I didn't have any reliable game plan because if I put stuff out in the open, it dies. It's that simple. So if I go first, probably I end up just trading stuff for as long as I can. But what going second let me do is let my opponent make the decisions. And I really wanted him to dictate how the game was going to go. Because if he decided that the game was going to go with us trading pieces backwards and forwards, fine. I could do that. It's not the end of the world. I was reasonably sure I could get a close game out of it. But then he went first and didn't play that careful game, which was fine by me. I had no no concerns about that at all. So he went first and sort of set up. He had 3 units of the infiltrator Sicarians. They all set up right in front of my line. So I can't, he's worried that I'm going to charge straight past him, do world eaters things, run into his entire army. That's not what Jakhal can do, really, most of the time. So they set up in front of me, and then he decided because we were on Terraform, was mission one, he set up a little castle on the right hand side, which was a lot of things. There was a transport, there was the guys that were actually doing terraform that got out of the transport, and then in front of them there was a unit of the scary Taraxi with flamers, which were one of the things that I did not want to deal with because they can flame you and then move backwards, and it's not very fun. and an entire brick of the Sicarian, the fighty Sicarians, the ones who have a lot of attacks, like 5 attacks each. They're also very good at killing Jakhals if they get the charge off. And he set up this wall on the right hand side and said, "Okay, I'm going to terraform this." And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, you are." There is nothing I can do about that because the cool thing about the AdMech Vanguard guys is they've got an aura of -1 OC. And one of the big weaknesses of my list is I have 1 OC on almost every model.
That's not a great moment. Yeah.
Almost every model has OC 1.
Yep.
So I realized, okay, there's no way I stop him from doing this. So I'd always planned on losing that flank. And I was planning, I'd sort of put 3 units, I'd put like some Spawn, the Exalted, and one of my big bricks of 20 Jakhals over on that side, ready to sort of brawl it out, trade for it as long as they can, while I sort of tried to lock down the middle and my safer side. And instead, he just sent everything that he had on that flank. So I got to just send everything I had in. And instantly, I picked up the tank, I picked up the flamer guys, I picked up the Rustoch guys. I didn't stop him from terraforming. But what I ended up doing was forcing him to stay there and deal with that for another time. And he did not want to have to deal with that. The game really swung on a couple of things. The first was that Angron did manage to get into some Rustalkers, not Rustalkers, the Chicken
Chicken walker
Walkers, the
things.
Ballistari,
Yeah.
managed to get into them turn 1, which I'd always planned to do. I essentially deployed Angron on the line, in line of sight of 4 of them, but not 6. And I said, okay, you're not going to kill them with 4. You might kill him with 4, but you're not likely to kill him with 4. And then he drew Assassinate turn 1, and I was very happy that I had left Lord Invocatus completely out in the open on the same
Oh
line of
no,
sight as
the
Angron.
bait.
And he took the bait entirely. He killed Invocatus. I was like, oh no, my cool scout guy that was going to do nothing in this game. Completely nothing in this game. He was there to give me scout and then die. That's what he does in most games, in all honesty. And he was like, okay, well, he's reliable Assassinate. And it took all 4 of the Chicken Walkers to kill him. And he died. Fine. Oh no. And then Angron went and killed 2 and left himself in line of sight of just 2, who obviously did nothing to him next turn. And he killed the other 2 next turn. And then this left-hand side of the board is mine. There is nothing stopping Angron from running absolute riot. And nothing really stopping the Jakhals and the Spawn and everything else that's on this side from killing whatever they like because they've got Angron rerolls. And I'm weak, toughness 3 bodies, absolutely, but so are Admech. I can kill them in combat. The big swing there was turn 2 for definite. He put a lot of shooting into some Jakhals that I sent out into the middle with the intent of them dying. I was waiting to sticky the objective when they died. They didn't die in shooting. There were like 4 of them left. And I'm still not quite sure how. It was so many shots. But sometimes they do that. One of the big things that I was able to do in this game, which I didn't get to do in many games, but one little fun interaction with the Demon Prince is he gives everything a 5-up invuln unless it already has an invuln, and then he gives it a 4-up invuln. If you use the wonderful little stratagem go to ground, which is usually garbage, it gives all of your units cover, and everyone remembers that it gives you cover. It also gives you a 6-up invulnerable save,
Yep.
which means
We
any
call that
unit of
one
my choice.
rotate jackal shields, I think, is the term that we've given it.
That's
But yeah,
brilliant.
it's when you do that to someone, their face is just like, that's not how it works. No, it
Yeah,
is. Like, it's as dumb as it sounds, but it works.
yeah, absolutely. And if GW didn't want it to work, they did a very poor job of stopping it because it's just undeniably, absolutely the way it interacts.
Yeah. When you have it on prepared positions as well, where you can just do it for free with your list, it's just like every turn, like, ha.
That was my round 4.
Yeah.
I think we will get to that one. But yeah, they didn't die. And
Hmm.
he'd sent out he sent out a whole bunch of stuff, including just a random unit of Rangers. He's one unit of Ranger guys that kind of weren't doing anything in this game. So he thought, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge these Rangers in. They're going to kill those 4 Jakhals because he had some objectives that meant he had to take the middle off me, and he didn't have enough stuff on unless he killed those Jakhals. So he decided that he was going to go for a charge. And we talked it out. We both knew that if he rolled a big enough charge, he was going to end up in range to get heroically intervened by another 20 Jakhals that were waiting in the ruin just behind the center of the board. And we worked it out, and it was sort of if you roll a 7 or less on this charge, you needed like 3 to get in. 7 or less, you are in, you are safe. You're probably going to kill these Jakhals, or at least enough of them that you're good. You rolled an 8, which meant
That's so rough.
it all went very, yeah, it was rough. So obviously he didn't even kill the jackals. He had like two of them.
Oh,
And
he didn't
then
even
I
kill them.
no, he killed.
Oh, salt the
He
wound.
left him. He left them on one. I remember that because that one guy kept passing morale and kept. I kept drawing random secondaries that meant this one
Of
guy could just
course,
keep
yeah,
picking points up for
of
nothing.
course. What a hero.
Um, yeah, I think he had like Stormlost objective and he had something else that meant he wanted to hold the middle, and he ended up getting neither of them. He lost the Rangers entirely because, of course, 20 Jackals kills 10 random Skitarii Ranger guys. And then I have 20 guys who are suddenly 6 inches further up the board than I'd expect them to be. It's 6 or 9.
That's
And
devastating.
the game changed from I'm going to trade in the middle to I'm going to send these 20 Jackals right into your backline.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to set up more Jackals behind that because if you don't deal with the Jackals that are in your backline, then they're just going to kill you. So you have to concentrate on killing these guys. And the game was kind of functionally over at that point. I'd lost the flank that I was expecting to lose. Eventually, it took about 3 turns, but by the time I'd actually lost it, I was sending more jackals in from the midboard because they were able to just sort of move across that way. And
That's
it
crazy.
was a reasonably close game. It was 97-54, but it was closer than
Yeah,
the points showed because I was still running low on stuff by the end. But
that heroic is huge, though. Like
it
being
was
able to make that play
absolutely
and leverage
massive.
so much out of it. Yeah, and
Yeah, and
it's the
it
way
was.
sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and it wasn't unexpected. We both knew that it could have happened. Like
Hmm.
there's no question of it being something that made either. Well, it made him unhappy for definite. But we both discussed that this might happen. This is a very big deal if this happens. But he was hoping for a big enough deal in the other direction, and it
Yeah,
just didn't
I
quite
mean
happen for him.
it's not unreasonable to expect below a 7. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
exactly. It was a risky play that they did not pay off for him.
mhm.
Not one bit. Um, so that was the first game, and that was a game I was definitely concerned about. But so was he. There was a lot of sort of mutual fear of what we could do.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that on both sides, where it's kind of like, this won't be easy for either of us, and it's gonna
No,
be a real
exactly.
experience. But awesome, strong opener. What do we got for round two?
Round two was against it was Tim, and he was playing. I was chuffed when I saw this because it was going to be a fun game. It was Tim who was running Custodes, and I was like, oh no, Custodes. And then I read the list and I saw Null Maiden Vigil at the top of it,
Let's
and I
go.
realized, oh, this is
Let's
the
go.
ladies.
Yeah,
Okay,
actually,
so it was.
weirdly, maybe kind of good depending on how many of the is it the purgation squads they have, the flamer ones that battle shock you. That could be kind of nasty,
Yeah,
actually.
potentially not bad. The thing about Flame is that everybody I've met and talked about this list today always say, "Oh, flamers are going to be awful for you, right?" And then, not really, because a flamer is an average of 3.5 shots on normal dice. That's just the way dice go. So say three flamers is 10 shots. Three flamers, probably with me on threes, they get 6 or 7 wounds through. I save three of those on average. So on average, most flamers in the game, every flamer kills one guy, and then they're 12 inches away from me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I completely like if I see a lot of flames in this, I just completely disrespect it because if they want to come close to me to try and kill some jackals, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna absolutely run them over next turn. And that was kind of what I was able to do in this game. There were a few units of those. I think it's the Witch Seekers, who do the battle shock thing afterwards. There was a few of those. There were some rhinos, a couple of assassins, and a couple of the Vigilator, the melee squads. One of those is
Oh
quite
yeah.
scary. One of them has
Yeah.
fight first. They've both got a lot of attacks. It's
Yeah.
pretty
The one with the
snazzy.
name character is actually like I've played that one a few times. I'm like, damn, this unit kind of slaps. I think they've got like fight first and dev wounds or something. It's like, oof,
Yeah,
okay.
they're really really solid.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for him, I went first, and he got uh the taste of the way I play Angron throughout this event, and through most of my games, to be honest, is that I just don't care if he dies.
Yeah, you can
And I
afford
tell
to
me,
be really reckless with Angron, right?
I tell my opponents this every time. So I had round two is Defoe, the one that rewards you for killing more, holding more. And I went first. So, okay, I have to kill something. It's worth two whole points if I kill a thing. So I sent Angron into the midboard and kill the rhino. 75
Fair.
points worth of rhino, and it's gone. And and then he gets 2 points himself next turn because he does manage to kill Angron. The list had two Caladius, the grav tanks with the cool
Yeah,
anti-tank cannons. Those things absolutely tear through Angron.
they're real good at killing Angron.
Yeah, yeah, we found that. Yeah, so he died turn one. Okay, fair enough. But then it's one rhino down, two rhinos left, and the majority of the list is angry bodies, and we sort of just both got stuck in very quickly. So I had my safe objective because nothing could really get to it. It's not a very fast list, the Null Maidens one, once you bring the rhinos down. There was Canis Rex in this list.
Oh,
Absolutely terrified of Canis Rex.
yeah, he's scary.
He was. I think three Exalted 8 went into him turn three and killed him from full.
Oh, that's so rude. That's so rude.
Full health to dead, and it was so sad. But I had sustained turned on. I think I had sustained and lethal turned on at that point
Even through
because we
that,
were.
I'm like, hell, that's a vibe.
And I went in and I said like I'm gonna do like half damage to him.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna chip away at him. You're gonna have to kill me, and then we'll deal with the rest of it next time. And he just died. The three angry guys, and I was so sad for him. I was so
I mean, I
sad.
can understand that. Happy for you, but sad for him.
Yeah, but it was generally speaking, it was a game where all of the trades was stuff that I wanted to go into things that I wanted them to go into. So Jakhals fought T3 sisters for the entire game. Eightbound killed the big stuff. Angron died turn one, came back. I think he didn't come back until turn three.
Oh,
Went into a Caladius. Didn't actually kill a Caladius, which was very disappointing.
oh, Angron, come on. Like, it's
He
not that hard
he
of a target.
stole me short. He left it on like two wounds. And then both the Caladius pointed at him and he died again. And then he came back turn four and charged the other Caladius and killed that one instead.
Well, you'd better look that time.
Yeah. So he didn't do very much in that game, to be honest, but he ate the anti-tank guns, which is what he was supposed to do, and died a whole bunch, but came back a whole bunch. That's kind of what my Angron does.
Yep.
But no, it was a game that was never really in doubt. It was I think 166 in the end, but partly it was because UKTC isn't a differential based scoring metric. It doesn't matter technically. It does psychologically, but it doesn't for the scores matter what my opponent scores.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters in terms of rankings is how many points I have scored.
Yeah.
So I quite happily let my opponent fight a bunch of stuff, kill a bunch of stuff, because what I'm looking to do is get to 100 points. Once I do that, it doesn't really matter what my opponent does. And it means we can have a more fun game. Like part of the thing about teams that sometimes bothers me is that a lot of because results are based on differential, your objective is not just to do well yourself, but to make sure your opponent does terribly. And that sometimes can translate to your opponent has a terrible game and a terrible time playing it, and you have great fun. And
Yeah, it
that's
can be a little bit rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people who play teams are used to that now, and they're actually very good at sort of rolling with that because
Yeah.
they go into a game knowing that they're about to get tonked, and they don't mind because they're expecting to get absolutely demolished. So it happens. We're going to roll some fun dice. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, it was a
So
really fun game. I think they were all really fun games, to be honest.
Null Maidens is cool. Like one of my buddies plays Null Maidens in the club, and every time we get to play, I'm like, oh hell yeah! I love
Yeah,
these like freaky anti-psycho ladies. They do
yeah,
stuff,
it's,
and
it's
I'm
a
like, what the hell?
it's a really cool list, and I can definitely see how it gets value into a bunch of stuff. It
Yeah.
does not like killing Jackal Horde at all, but I can see how it kills a bunch of stuff pretty well.
Yeah. Awesome. So two big wins. Rocking into game number three. You feeling a little bit like, oh, kind of starting to get into danger territory? But I guess it's the LGT, right? There's gonna be like hundreds of people on 2-0.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big thing. I think end of round two, there are still 200 players left, and if you think there are maybe 50 players in the room who can win it, there's still a very real chance that you don't play one of them
Yeah.
going into round three, going into round four even. There's still a real chance you don't play one of the really good players in the room, which is one of the things that makes LGT really fun. You never
Yeah.
really know what matchups you're going to get. And I was lucky enough not to get no disrespect to my player at all. He was really good, but not one of the players who we were thinking was going to win it. It was Jack Coolstock, I think, and he was running his Bully Boys Orks.
Ooh.
That was a very, very bad game for him. He
Yeah. they
did
they don't
not.
quite have that volume for 110 jackals, do they?
They don't know. He had one brick of 10 knobs. Everything else was not enough anywhere across the board. Um, and unfortunately for
That's pretty
him, one of
rough.
the things that the unit that he decided to send his 10 knobs into was Invocatus, who did not die to 10 knobs. Not the first time, anyway. He lived on one for some absolutely absurd reason. It was I went for did I go first? No, I went second this time. He's just sort of set up a bit across the board, and I decided that I was going to do what I always do. Angron was going into something. He went in and he killed a rhino. Sorry, a truck, which is not a rhino at all.
It's the
Honest,
orc rhino.
orc rhino. So he went and he just killed a truck because that's what I sent Angron in to do.
Nice.
Um,
I like that you have a distinct role for Angron of just like find the like low point dedicated transport, you take that out, then you die.
yeah, he goes in and scare. He's a weird skirmishing unit for me in the early game. I will happily send him into almost anything because that his first F is 3. It is free in my head.
Yeah,
It
that's
doesn't
so fair.
matter. I just get a do over. We go again and we try and kill bigger stuff
Hmm.
once the screening is out of the game. So I could sort of do a bit of setup myself turn one, get Invocatus to a safe corner objective. Nothing else was on any of the midboard objectives because I knew it was just going to die. And I sent Angron in, and I killed a truck. I tagged into some Meganobs who did a little bit of damage, and then I said, okay, like you've got to do something about this big guy now. Because that's how I like to use Angron, is to make him the problem. Because in my head, he's not really the problem. The problem is all of the jackals behind him.
Yeah, but if you shove
But
him
if I
out
can,
so aggressively in turn one, like
it makes him a real threat
he
piece.
becomes a problem, right? Because you can't really shoot the
Absolutely.
jackals.
Absolutely. So my opponent sent another brick of Meganobs. So we put 2 bricks of Meganobs into Angron and a few other bits and bobs. And he didn't die. He lived on 1 again. Um,
Nice.
and my opponent at the same time had set up to sort of assume we kill Angron and control the midboard. So he'd put most of his army out strung across the midboard. So this was 6 objective taken hold in round 3. He really wanted to grab that midboard and sort of brawl on it because he feels like, okay, that's the fight that we win here. But then Angron didn't die, and Angron rerolls turn this army from kind of mediocre little cultist guys into absolute blenders. I was lucky enough because I'd forgotten that Bully Boys could do it. They have a strat to stop you from falling back, and make you take a desperate escape test if you fall back. And if you're below half strength, it's at -1.
Not a great
So
moment for Ron.
the game suddenly turned into, okay, can I roll a 4 up to not die when I fall back? And I
Hmm.
did. And that
Nice.
meant that Angron just left combat. He didn't care. He doesn't need to be fighting these mega nubs. They're not in the right place. And it's the only game actually I managed to do it. I just sent out my army because he sent his out. We can take this brawl on, fantastic. So I just sent, I think, 80 jackals into the midboard.
Whoa.
Almost everything went in.
That's a tough movement
20,
phase, that one is.
20 off to one side, 20 off to one side, 60 across the middle, charged everything. And at the end of it, we picked up basically like all of the Storm Boys. We picked up all but one Mega Nob in one unit that was in the midboard. We picked up a truck, a whole bunch of Gretchen that were all around. There were no knobs left. There was one unit of Storm Boys left on its home objective, and sort of the unit of Mega Nobs that was fighting Angron originally were left back in the backfield. Everything else was dead, and it was awful. It was about an hour long fight phase, it felt
I
like, and
was
it
gonna
probably
say
actually was.
like 80 jackals going in with I assume pretty much all of them had full rerolls from Ron.
Pretty much, yeah,
Like sustained, lethal. That's
yeah.
tough. That's tough for
It, it
anyone.
it takes a while to resolve, but yeah, Orks don't have good saves, turns out. So
Yeah.
Orks die really well to make a lot of lethal hits saves. Um, they
I
died
would pay
really
good
bad.
money to just watch that turn alone, just to see the process of like, ah yes, this is the suffering that everyone kind of associates with this list, all happening all at once.
Yeah, so that game realistically just ended in turn 2. It
Hmm.
was it was over at that point. I had way too much, and I think we talked it out almost from turn 3. He sort of played a few things, got a few points, then was like, okay, this game this is beyond me, isn't it? So we sort of talked out the final bits of the game, and we went off for the evening, got to enjoy our nights and try and relax a bit
Yeah,
before round four pairings come out, which for me came out whilst I was with the team having an Indian,
nice.
and all of a sudden took over my entire evening because I went into panic mode.
It's always the way in UKTC. You get your round four pairing at like it's always like it never seems to be a good time. You know, it's always just
No,
like, oh, I didn't want to receive this now. I was just calming down.
yeah, it's like
So,
half eight, 9 o'clock.
what was your round four?
Round four, I drew Thousand Suns, and the Thousand Suns are definitely one of those armies that are scary.
Yeah.
As they are to almost anybody. There's no good player in the game who thinks, oh, it's Thousand Suns. I'm gonna have an easy game here because Thousand Suns played perfectly, lose to almost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Full stop. They're so strong still, and they've got so many tricks. Um, and I was lucky in this game, as I think I'm not going to be lucky for much longer if I keep playing this kind of list. I was lucky that my opponent didn't really know how the list likes to play. I was also incredibly lucky to go first. Um, but this was a cool Thousand Suns list. It had two Thousand Suns Forge Beams, and they're actually quite good.
Yeah, they're
Um,
nice. I like
I
them.
was, yeah, and they kill a lot of Jakhals if they get the chance to. And they've got their effect is -1 to hit after they've shot something, which is also not something I want to deal with on Jakhals because they hit on fours or fives natively.
Oh, the poor
Uh,
Mauler hitting on sixes. That's so rough.
yeah, exactly. So I didn't want that. But even though to put those in, he sort of also had one of the Mutalith beasts, so he's fairly light on rubrics. He only had 3 rubric squads and a couple of cultist units. So it was a bit light on board presence in exchange for having this sort of extra bit of damage at the back of the board. But it wasn't far enough back for World Eaters. So I got turn one. I sent in Angron. I also sent in the 3 Exalted 8 bound, and the 3 Exalted 8 bound killed a Forge Fiend because I gave them Angron
Ooh,
rerolls.
nice.
So we're one Forge Fiend down. Angron, as is his one, did not go into anything as cool as a tank. No, he
I'm
killed
guessing
10
10
cultists.
cultists or something.
He killed
Yeah,
10 cultists.
yeah, got
And
it.
he was so happy to do it because I'd spotted early on that where these 10 cultists were not 4 inches away from Magnus. Because why would they be? There's no world where something big goes into cultists and tags Magnus afterwards, except that's exactly what I did. Because of course I did. Because I want Angron to be the big threat on the board.
Hmm.
Against Thousand Sons almost more than anything, because Thousand Sons are one of those, the sort of double Doom Ball army, one of those armies that can look at my Demon Prince and just make him go away.
Yep,
If they
100%.
decide that he's priority one and they decide that he has to go, there's not much I can do to stop it. There's not much anybody can do to stop something from getting double Doom bolted at any given time. And that, on any normal dice, just picks my Demon Prince off, takes him out of the game. And then this list, it doesn't fall apart, but I certainly don't want to lose that Invuln bubble too soon. So I made Angron the biggest threat in the room, and it took him all of turn one to kill Angron and the Exalted and all the things that were the actual threats that were right in his objective, and I could set up safely. And of course, turn two, Angron comes back. Because of course he does.
Yep.
And he came back and he failed his charge. Didn't make it in this time because sometimes he does. It's an 8-inch charge. Oh no, he hasn't made it with a reroll. But I wasn't silly about it. I put him behind a ruined wall. We found an angle where he could get the charge to be an 8 and not be completely exposed to shooting without stuff coming out into the middle of the board. And my opponent decided that, okay, that's what Magnus is going to do. Magnus is just going to go and pick up Angron because once Angron's gone again and my stuff is a lot further up the board, then maybe there's the threat sort of dealt with at that point. Unfortunately for him, he left Angron on 1 wound.
Oh no. After
Once
Magnus?
again.
Oh no. This is a
Once
weird
again.
reoccurring theme in your games. There's people just like failing
Yeah,
that last toenail from Angron.
yeah. Lived on one. He then charged some Jakhals on the midboard and left me with, I think it was 3 Jakhals alive. Those 3 Jakhals between them managed to tag Magnus and also the one cool Inferno Master with the damage 2 thing that was sat in the midboard. Nothing else could see Angron, so nothing could overwatch Angron. And he went in and picked Magnus up in one go.
Oh, for fuck's sake. That's actually
Which,
ridiculous.
Which on normal dice, when I've got sustained up, when I've got lethal, when I've got the buffs up, he does actually like on any kind of average dice, he kills Magnus. Even through a couple of rerolls, even through a blank, he does still die on normal dice. My opponent rolled horrifically below average and failed the vast majority of his saves. But if it had gone the other way, if he'd saved them, then we would have been very sad in the other direction. We weren't. Magnus got absolutely destroyed. And then I tagged Angron into the Inferno Master that was just a few inches away, who promptly
Nice.
killed Angron for me,
Oh,
so
rude.
I could get him back in turn three.
You got him back immediately?
No, we did that combat first. So after
uh,
that, I had other combats going on. Still in turn two, I kill that unit. I roll the blood dice again, and Angron comes back in turn two,
what?
and Rapid
Yes.
Ingress is over in turn three.
It's actually so rude. Like, this list is just like.
But everything I do sort of plays. I try and play with the attitude that it's going to happen. It's
Mhm.
reliable enough that I go in and trust that it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, fine, we'll deal with it. But if I manifest it,
You create an
it will
environment where
definitely.
your opponent is just willingly accepting that Angron is just this permanently respawning mechanic.
Yeah, exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
that's awful.
But the big thing with Thousand Suns is once Magnus is gone, the big threat to the list is gone.
Yeah.
Because as you've mentioned before, flamers are scary, absolutely, but they won't kill a unit of jackals. And if flames come out, then I send in jackals, and they will. The four guys that have AP1 damage 2 on their own will pick up most of a squad of Rubik Marines. They're just regular Marine bodies at the end of the day. Toughness 4, 3 up armor, nothing going on with their defenses. So even though Angron, I don't think did much in the game after that. Might have not come back until sort of 10-4-ish. No, he did
I
come
feel
back. He
like
came
he's
back in
done
Rapid
enough at
Ingress.
that point. You know, he
Yeah,
got his 10
exactly.
cultists, which is the main thing.
Yeah, he's done his job. I had no way of dealing with that Moodless beast. That thing just scythed through Jackals for the entire game, but I just kept sending Jackals into it, and that's all I need.
Weirdly hard to kill the mutalith. I always found it. And just
Yeah,
like put stuff into it. I'm like, why is it alive still?
yeah, no, it's super tanky. And this game, my opponent took a secret mission.
Oh,
It wouldn't have made a difference to the result in the end, but it was a would have been a very close game if that had succeeded. I thought it would be one secret mission. It was not the one that I thought it was. Um, which meant that I went for a big push turn five because we're at that point where sort of almost everything is dead. I just need to clear units because I thought he was taking kill me off the mid board, hold three mid objectives that aren't in your deployment zone. Um, and he was actually taking that. What I'd forgotten was that my deployment zone one counts for that,
ah,
and his
yes.
crystal squad had gone and stolen my home objective. So he actually only needed to take two in the midboard, and I was lucky enough that I ended up killing just everything apart from the Mutalith and that crystal squad in turn five. Everything just sort of finally vanished. It took a lot of work to get the kills that we had to, and I just sort of flooded the middle objectives. Um, but yeah, it was a very close game, and if the secret mission had come off, it would have been even closer. I think it was 84-51 in the end. So it would have been 84-71. It was a really good game.
Yeah, real brawler by the sounds of it, that one.
Yeah, but I think I've played this the Thousand Suns matchup a few times now, and it all comes down to can I get Angron into Magnus? If I
Hmm.
can, then I'm in a great spot. Chances are I'm going to win this because I can kill Rubrics,
Yeah.
I can kill Inferno Masters, I can kill Sorcerers. They all just die. Nothing kills Magnus in my list apart from Angron. So if I don't get Angron in, or if he dies on the way in, or if he dies and doesn't come back, then it's probably going to be game over pretty quickly for me. Because Magnus just kills so many things, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, he's. Yeah, I feel like it's the story for all World Leader players into Thousand Sons is like, can I get Magnus? If not, it's going to be real struggle time. But
No,
yeah, look,
absolutely.
amazing that you came out with that one. I would have been fearing that double Doom Bolt because I guess that is one of those things which can pick up quite a number of good units. I mean, the Prince is the real scary one. I had it before where one of the dudes, the teleporting guys, the crystal guy, just teleported behind my Prince and just Doom Bolt. I was just like, oh no, my invulnerable save. But yeah, it's a scary one. So you're 4-0. You're going
Yeah.
into round 5 at the LGT at 4-0 with probably the wildest list of all the people who are on 4-0. What have we got for round five?
Round five, I finally hit one of the best players in the room. And arguably, I mean, he's now the double winner. So it was Liam VSL, who not one of the top 50 in the room, one of the top five, top two, top
I
one.
feel like a couple of people may have heard of him before. He's something of a prolific player in the scene, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you've caught the results of the LGT, you know that Liam won the LGT. So I didn't beat him. Yeah,
Yeah. Spoiler.
we had a hell of a game out of it. So he was running a really interesting list. Actually, he was running a Veterans of the Long War Chaos Space Marines list, and it was an Emperor's Children version of it as well. So Emperor's Children came out a few months ago. Everybody took one look at it and said, "Well, this is useless. Let's play other stuff." Veterans came out when the Codex came out, and everyone looked at that detachment and said, "Oh, but I want to run the detachment that has +1 AP and assault and everything, because of course that's clearly the best detachment." And sort of put this one down.
I feel like
Um,
that's like a universal issue with the Chaos Space Marine Codex, where everyone was just like, "Aha, Renegade Raiders," and everything else must be trash. But as we're
Absolutely,
starting
yeah.
to see, that is not indeed the case. And Veterans has some really cool tricks in there. I think
Yeah, no,
it's a
the
real spicy
toolbox
list.
it has, yeah,
Mm,
it's got such amazing strats, and everyone and people were very quick to rule it out because oh, it's just a Space Marine Codex detachment. It's just it does all the stuff that a Space Marine list does, as if Space Marine list is somehow bad. But Space Marines, if they had access to Lucius the Eternal and the stuff that Fabius Bile does,
yep.
if Space Marines had access to Noise Marines and Chosen, maybe the Space Marines players would be not complaining about their stuff.
Hmm.
If they had access to Obliterators, oh, Obliterators.
Yeah.
It's it's a very good list. I think it was on stream a couple of times in the end. It's incredibly good at manipulating melee armies, and Liam knows what he's doing. He will race to 6 command points instantly, so that he can do. There's a bunch of combos we can do. One of them costs essentially 6 CP in a single turn, and he'll have it by the end of turn two, ready to go because he knows what he's doing against it. But the Fabius Bile chosen are absolute tanks. They go up to like toughness 5, they hit harder as long as Bile's alive, and he comes back once for free, so you can't just snipe him out. In fact, not even while he's alive. The buffs last forever. If he's in the unit at the start of the battle, they are
Yeah.
buffed
They
permanently.
stay up. Yeah. It's crazy.
If
And
he's still alive, he
he's
gets to
actually
blank
really
damage
hard to
once a
kill as
turn.
well, you know, Bile. Like
He's
he just
so tough.
because he has the little thingy, the dude, Surgeon Acolyte or something,
Yeah.
who just takes a hit for him, and oh yeah, it's nightmare fuel. As someone who runs Bile, I'm like, this is toxic.
No, absolutely. So he's got a Lucius squad as well, and he's got a little Huron Legionnaire squad, which has a reactive move, which is
Hmm.
really annoying because Veterans also has another reactive move, and he can manipulate armies incredibly well with this pair of reactive move abilities and stratagems. That means it's really hard to get in, and even once you're in, it's really hard to get the kills on any of the things that they have. But no, it was a really good game. I went second, which I was sad about because I always want to go first. It's a World Eaters list at the end of the day. Um, and he's got a couple of Predator Destructors, which are pretty good at shooting everything. They've got the auto cannons that do all right into Jakhals. They've got the las cannons that hit my big stuff reasonably hard. He was a bit unlucky at the end. One of his Predators actually got out traded by a Forge Fiend. It tried to kill my Forge Fiend twice, and I killed it instead,
That is pretty cool.
which was great fun. He was really annoyed about losing that little exchange.
Yeah, fair.
Um, but he went first. He set up. He killed a few Jakhals because the Predators sort of came out onto the flanks. And I made my misplay of the event probably. It was very. I can't even work out what I did. It was very round five brain decision. I sent Angron in. I killed a Predator. That was absolutely always the plan. I had a spot that I'd already planned out, that I'd measured out, that was like, okay, if I go here, Angron can kill the tank and consolidate back onto my safe objective and not be immune to shooting, but his angle, it cuts the angles down so that he's a lot harder to shoot at. He's a bit further away from most of the melee stuff, so they have to come out, which is exactly what I want. I want stuff to have to come at me to get stuff and then get traded into. But instead, I draw an assassinate, and the fact that nothing else managed to roll more than a 2-inch advance to get onto this corner objective that Angron would have been back on didn't stop me. I don't know why. That should have been the immediate point.
Yep.
I had assassinate, but I also had um, take objectives in the midboard as my mission. So I could have had points. I just decided not to. And I charged the tank from the other side for no reason, no good reason whatsoever, apart from in my head there was this idea that okay, if I go here, he's going to heroic with Lucius's squad, and if he does that, then he can just epic challenge out Lucius after he's done a bit of damage. And of course, Liam didn't take that bait. It was incredibly dumb. It was so
I
silly.
feel like
It
that's a
was
pretty big punch up. Lucius is good, but
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. It was one of it was just it was a
Around
the
five
only time I
moment,
could
as you
think
said, though,
it
right?
was
Like,
definitely
yeah,
around 5 moment.
yeah.
He didn't take the bait. I killed the tank, but I couldn't move anywhere, and I didn't hold any midboard objectives. And of course, Angron just got shot to death next time because there are 4 obliterated in this list, and I've left Angron in melter range because I've charged the wrong side of the
Oh
tank.
no. Oh,
So he
that's
just
a
dies.
that's a moment.
Um, and because I've gone second, he's died without the chance to res him. And Liam's recognized that okay, this is a chance now. I can kill him and I can push out. So he pushed out with a bunch of stuff. And I got a reasonably good clapback in most places. He sort of advanced a rhino down the side of the board and this predator that was going to kill my Forge Fiend. Forge Fiend didn't die, so I ended up killing the predator and popping the rhino and doing a bunch of damage to a bunch of noise marines that had got out to protect the rhino. It was all very good on that side. But in the middle of the board is the Lucius squad and is the Bile squad waiting to heroic in reinforcements. And I sent in 40 Jakhals and the Demon Prince into that midboard brawl. And I was thinking, I'm not going to kill Lucius's squad because the Demon Prince went into Lucius because half damage, Lucius won't kill him. I'm not going to kill his squad. I will kill a bunch of them, and that'll be enough. And then all of the Jakhals ended up fighting the Chosen. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to kill this squad again, but if I kill like half of them, it'll cut most of the shooting, most of the damage. These units will not be able to do enough to me to stop me from winning the brawl, or at least holding them in place long enough for Angron to come back and clean up. That fight phase, that was when my dice decided to leave me, and Liam's decided that they were not going to abandon him. I put about 6 saves on his Legionnaires with the Demon Prince, who of course didn't die. He took like 4 damage. Liam was like, "Oh, why is this going to die?" It was because it's Demon Prince. He doesn't die. I put about 6 saves on the Legionnaires. Didn't do any dev wounds because why would I roll sixes at this point in the game? This is not. This is the time when it all
He's
goes wrong.
so like I run that guy a lot. He's so bad at rolling dev wounds. He just never does it. You know?
So, and they're great when they happen, and they just don't when it matters. But
Yeah.
he wounded really well. I got like 6 wounds through on his 7 attacks. It was great fun.
Yeah.
Liam made all but 1. I killed 1 Legionnaire.
AP2
Okay, but there's a
sucks.
Legionnaire dead. Fantastic. Yeah, he was AP. I don't understand why he's AP2. Why
He's a
did
demon prince.
Marine?
Like, come
Yeah,
on.
cool big guy with a cool sword. Why is it
Yeah.
AP2? But then all the Jakhals got to fight the Chosen. I got to activate all of them first. There were no interrupts. He didn't Armor of Contempt them even because he looked at them and thought, oh, they don't kill me. The math, I kill like 6, 5 or 6 on average, and I'm so happy at that point. Like if I go in, I kill 3 Legionnaires, 4 Legionnaires, and half this Chosen brick. I'm in a great spot.
Yeah.
I didn't kill 1.
No. Not even one. No.
Not even 1. I did 2 damage
Oh
to 1
no. How many did you put in? 20?
40.
40 into one?
40 Jakhals went in.
Oh, that's so rough.
Might have lost a couple to Predators beforehand, but it was all the big guys and most of the small guys in 2 squads. And I didn't kill a single Chosen model. And obviously, I then lost that brawl
Yep.
horrifically. The Demon Prince died in the next fight phase because the Chosen swung back into him. They went on to steal my home objective. Angron came back. Great. He stole their home objective because by that point I'm playing for a secret mission because by the end of, I think, turn 4, by the end of turn 3, I had left, realistically, Angron and a few dregs of Jakhals that are being picked up across the board by that point. Um, but it's just one of those things sometimes.
Oh, it was
Apart
such a
from
it's such a good setup play. Like I everything you did, I was like, yep, that's like perfect, you know? It's definitely gonna go
yeah,
well. Oh,
yeah,
40
and there was
jackals for
nothing
not
to
even a single chosen. That is actually heartbreaking.
yeah, Nothing of mine died. Nothing of his died. Everything of mine died. And
The only way it
it's the
could have been
worst
worse is if
feeling
you magically lost the prince to Lucius, which like that would have been. When
in
you
the
were
first
talking,
fight.
when you were building up that fight, I was like, "Oh no, the prince randomly died here, didn't he?"
No, I just decided not to kill anything, and it was if I'd had Angron rerolls, it would have happened.
Yeah,
It would have been
yeah.
absolutely fine.
Hmm.
But I'd lost Angron because I did a silly play, and it was too soon for me to get Angron back because I went second and all that stuff. But even then, apart from the Angron play, I would have done everything the same.
Yeah.
Going if I had the chance to do it all again, I would do it all again. I would make the exact same move, and it would work 7 or 8 times out of 10, maybe not 9 times out of 10. But it was the only play I felt like I had at that point because chosen are fast.
Hmm.
So if I don't go in this go turn when he's obviously set up for it, but I have to take the bait. If I don't go now, I'm not going to get the chance to go again because they're going to hit me.
Yeah.
Um, and it was so disappointing. But it was a really good game. He played it really well, and he's a great guy to play against.
Hmm.
And honestly, I was disappointed. I was hoping I went into this thinking if I don't play against the list that I don't want to play against, if I dodge Grey Knights, if I dodge maybe Chaos Knights, I could win this. Like
Hmm.
this is a list that could easily 5-0 and then could easily just win the next 5 games because most of the top lists, the top things in the game, they actually don't kill Jakhals very well. So they're kitted out for killing tank lists or for killing Terminator lists because that's what most of the top end of the meta is. There's not very many horde lists that people are sort of working out and teching to deal with. Um,
I
but yeah,
like
I got
it's so
checked at
cool.
the end.
It the dream was there as well, and like
It
if that
was.
play had just gone right, I feel like the dream was very much like we could be talking like going 8-0 with 110 jackals. But it's still like, I mean, I don't think anyone could like reasonably pick this up and just be like, yes, I am going to go to the LGT and go 4-0 and lose to the person who won the event. Like that is like an incredible testament to your skill as well, because I
Mhm.
mean, there's some hectic decision making in this list. I feel like
Yeah,
they like
absolutely.
the way that you talk about it, it sounds like so simple. It's like, oh yeah, this stuff just happens and it's great. But one misplay with the Demon Prince, you leave one angle open and the whole house of cards. I know it doesn't necessarily come tumbling down, but it's a big one to lose. But yeah, it's
Absolutely.
so like awesome that you did that. I just think it's like the coolest thing. I love Jakhals and I love that Demon Prince. And I love that you just did this crazy list and did so well with it. It's just like because so many people are that I've talked to about it are just like, no, you'd never bring that list. It's not actually that good. It's not that durable. And you just kill the demon prince. It's easy, bro. I'm like, well, if you play it right, it's theoretically actually not easy at all. So coming away
Absolutely.
from the
And
LGT, were you like, how are you feeling? Were you like happy with how it ended? Do you want to run the list again, or are you kind of like, I've moved around these models enough now?
no, I'm definitely going to keep running it. There's a teams event coming up next month, and I will definitely be uh, at least considering taking this list or a similar one to that. I'm considering a couple of changes with possibly the team's headspace on, but one of the nice things about this list is it has the 10 point spare. If I'm playing it on, for example, a WTC board, I just take out the Forge Fiend and put more Exalted in
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Exalted are great.
And
Um,
we have points possibly probably this week as well. And
that's true, yeah.
I mean, if the Demon Prince comes down in points, which he definitely should, that could really
He's
open
very
up the.
expensive.
Would be nice, but maybe someone's watching the LGT being like, maybe we need to really make sure we nerf that prince again.
I hope not. I really hope not. He is extremely expensive. He's 225 points that
It's crazy.
does
Yeah,
nothing offensively. Like if you don't use him in this kind of list, why would you ever actually
yeah,
take him? Because he's so mediocre
yeah. I've
most of
been
the time.
desperately trying to. I ran into pretty much every major this year, not with 120
Nice.
jackals. It was typically like 40. And just to be like, all right, 18 Exalted 8 bound with a 4 up, 5 up, it's probably good. And like, yeah, sure, it's good sometimes, but a lot of the time it's just like, man, this guy just fucking really sucks on the tabletop. Like, you just move him around and he doesn't do anything. And he absorbs a
Yeah.
lot of damage, but like, it's just like, all right, I probably didn't need the 4 up for like 225 points worth of a model.
Exactly.
um,
It's difficult. But no, actually, it's not as horrible to run as it feels like it should be.
okay, that is interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
because a lot of the time, like people think about, oh, you're moving 110 jackals, but you're not really moving 110 jackals for most of the game. Like deployment is a nightmare,
Mm.
100%. There's no getting around that. Deployment is slow. Turn one is slow while the jackals get where they want to be. But from there, it's sort of a very quick decision of, are these jackals doing anything this turn?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not, they're probably just standing still.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are, I'm just gonna move up what I have to move. They'll charge. Great, fantastic. We'll roll some dice, and then we'll also not be moving them because now they're in the brawl.
Except for that
So
one
all we
game
have
where
to
you
do
put
is
in 80 at once.
that was a long fight.
Yeah.
I used a lot of my clock in that
I, I
game.
I could see that, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
most
mean,
of the time they go where they need to and then they die because
mm-hmm.
they're cultists at the end of the day,
Mm.
or they don't die and I've won the game because the thing that they were fighting is gone.
Makes a lot of sense.
So it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. I've definitely been worse after running. I run a lot of Necrons, a lot of hypercrypt teleporting stuff. That is harder for me a lot of the time because the amount of time you spend bent over the board trying to work out where stuff can drop.
Yep. Or in the
Not fun.
UKTC where they have those really long table rows and you're like, I'm about to teleport 3 things at different places
Yeah,
across the board. I'll catch up with you in like 2 minutes. I gotta run across
yeah,
like 100 people right now.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah, it's
Jackals generally, I'm playing in my side of the board. I'm not pushing out. I'm not dealing with what's over there. They're just going to do what they need to do. So I think it's a surprisingly easy list to run physically. It
mm-hmm.
does still like I went in with all of the tricks planned. I had all of my squads have got the right colored elastic bands on their bases, so I never lose them. I had pre-packaged sets of this is 24 dice. This is how many dice half a squad of jackals gets on the charge. I need to have these 24 dice that never left this tray
Yeah.
ever. No more dice ever went on. No dice ever left because I had to be sure if a full squad of 20 jackals goes in, I'm just going to roll this twice, and it makes decision making so much quicker.
Yeah, for sure. You got to be prepped for that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, look, it was really cool to talk about this. I've been looking forward to this like pretty much all week. I need to know more about the 120 jackals. It's got a very very close spot to my heart. And it was really awesome to talk to you, Josie. Is there
Yeah, thank
anyone
you.
or anything you want to shout out before we close this one out?
Yeah, so I'd love to give a shout out to my team. It's Try Hard Wargaming. We are a team based out of Discord initially, but we've got big presences now sort of across the world. We've got a chapter out in America. We've got a chapter out in the Nordic regions. A good chunk of the Irish WTC team is involved with Try Hard at this point. And we've got a lot of top players, but also a lot of sort of learner players. I am responsible for the sort of the competitive side of the UK EU region, and I would absolutely encourage you to drop me or any of the people involved a message. It's a great server for getting good games, for learning games, and also for getting some really good sort of 40k done.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. As I know a bunch of the tryhard guys, obviously the Irish ones, and they are all a great bunch. Like it does seem like a genuinely lovely group of people. So for anyone
Yeah,
who's looking for maybe to skill up, you won't find it on the Red Path, but you might find it on tryhard. So check them out. But for now, that has been this episode of the Skull Takers. I've been Dara, and this has been Josie and her 110 Jackal madness. Which, if you want to find out more, Josie's also in the Red Pass, so you can ping her there and find out exactly how crazy it was to run it. But thank you so
amazing.
much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Josie, for joining me. It was an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure. And until the next one, folks, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.